And we are back here at Nordic Masters, Asia, and welcome 2024. A lot of magic going on. Obviously, we're fresh off the ban list now. There is no Grief, there is no Nardu this weekend. But what we do have is a Player of the Year and the current Pro Tour champion, Mr. Simon Nielsen, joining me in the booth for all weekend long, ladies and gentlemen. We've got them all weekend long. Are you having fun so far?
Yeah, no, it's like I just love commentating and like watching games of Magic and analyzing them and like seeing, you know, the different ways that like different players approach the game. Like it's always so fun.
It's pretty sick. And we actually have 167 players in the room battling it out over 2 days of Magic to call himself the Nordic Masters champion. Round number 5. Players kicking off, and it looks like we've got a... I'm going to call it fan favourite because I'm a big fan of Oscar. Oscar Christensen on the left of our screen. See him doing extremely well around the European scenes for many years now. And starting off 4-0 with this Boros energy deck.
Yeah, Oscar is like the winner of GP Gothenburg 11 years ago when he was just a wee child. 2 more GP sub 8 through his name. A Pro Tour sub 8 at the Mythic Championship 6. That is the Oko Pro Tour. And yeah, he's still going, excellent player and doing incredibly well in this tournament as well. He is up against a true Nordic master. Jansson went undefeated last year with Blue-Red Storm before the printing of like Ruby or any Rals. Okay. He just played Blue-Red Storm and it did him incredibly well. He ended up losing the finals of last year's Nordic Masters. And now here he's 4-0. He's playing... He called it Izzet Phoenix on his deck list because there's 2 Detective Phoenix in this Murkti list. So it's kind of interesting here. But otherwise, it's like kind of what you would expect. Dragon Mage Channeler, Ragavan, and...
So we kept the same colors. We're in the same colors as Storm as last year, just not, our cards are slightly less powerful, shall we say, in this matchup.
Well, kind of more powerful, right? Because the Storm cards are individually pretty weak. But yeah, this Spell Snare here, for instance, like such a powerful card. Just like, like you did nothing turn 1, I'm going to negate your entire turn 2 for just a single mana.
Just asking how many rings are in this Boros list. It looks like there is 3 in the main. Which is kind of weird, right? Like all these aggro decks playing rings in the main now, 4 drops, 22 land. Math doesn't work out, but it just seems to work.
It's just Boros is not really an aggro deck. Is the main culprit of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh. No, I mean it's like it can play aggressive. Like if you need to, if you're playing against a combo deck, you can turn the aggressive on. But it's like much more of a mid-range value deck. Like so many of the cards you place themselves and like increment like value over time, and so ring kind of like fits into that shell. Also, one of the issues the ring has is that it can kill you. Well, here's the Dash Dragavan. The ring can kill you, but if you like have all this life gain from that you do in the energy deck, it's much less susceptible to do so.
Okay, interesting. Of course, top card exiled is just the planes. Treasure token generated, and the Ragavan's going to go back to hand end of turn. It's crazy that only a year ago, Ragavan was like the most broken 1-drop ever. It's so powerful. Everyone should use it. Now it's like hardly top 3, if that.
Yeah, they definitely like helped a lot. That we had the Bowmaster like trying to drive it out alongside the Ren and 6, which barely sees any play anymore either.
Yeah, that's a 2-mana Planeswalker that could basically win the game on itself once you ultimate. Not even good enough at the minute in this current meta.
We have the energy counter off screen. I wonder if we can get that fixed.
We'll get that sorted. I'll send a message to the team.
Here's another thing that needs to get fixed. That is John Jansson's mana here, because it is all mountains here. I think this Ragavan is going to do a great job of providing blue mana through these treasures, or maybe providing white mana for this Flage. But no, John does not have a 3rd land here to be able to play that Flage.
Would you even cast it though? Because it would still go to Oscar's graveyard, right?
That's actually true. Yeah, it's probably a bad idea.
Yeah. Lightning Helix is good, but Oscar, depending on how many basics he plays in the list. Remember, 1 did get exiled from Ragavan, 1 is in play, and obviously it's a closed deck this tournament. But we have access to it. There's actually only 2 basics in the deck, so we've seen both of them now. Oscar cannot bring a Flage back from the graveyard unless he can generate some treasure tokens this game. Oh, right,
because the Blood Moon is locking him out of it. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe Oscar's the one who needs fixing.
And there's no Fables here either, so no Fables to be able to generate treasure tokens. In fact, there is just no way to cast it now while that Blood Moon is on the battlefield. See how that pans out in this game.
Well, yeah, that also means like he can never double spell 2 white spells in the same turn. So he's actually like, like stuff like Amp Raps is exactly what he wants. Like lets him like play multiple spells a turn while it's the second Amp Raptor. So that's pretty nice. Just like, getting that energy right back.
And Raptors, like just chaining off on each other. Of course, the first one, you get to do I call it a baby cascade effect. If you do hit a second one off it, you don't. You have to cast it for it to be relevant. Going to hit the Oslos Pride. We're going to follow that up with. Now this one, really good. Once it starts connecting, we start gaining more life, generating more, 1/1 cat tokens, which I think that 1/1 cat token actually spiked to like $7 at one point.
Oh yeah, this is a good. Yeah, now we can actually see the energy. It's a pretty important count, and yeah, we don't really need to view Oscar's library, so that's nice fix. It's so nice to have the table spotters down there working with us here to bring you the best possible coverage, and that is an Oslo Pride, yeah, coming down.
So, what's the most scary threat on the battlefield right now? What would you say? It's the Raptors or the Pride? And it looks like they think that the Pride's the big one.
The Raptors already done its thing, right? So it's not like it is just as scary as the 2/1 first strike is, which is like arguably like not that much, but still contends pretty well with a Ragavan. The Oslo Pride is the card that can really get away with the game here. And ooh, yeah. So
here we go.
The 2 treasure tokens plus these 2 removal spells, allowing a. Okay, can I change my answer? I think I think Murkti Regent is the most scary threat on the board right now.
Fair one. Well, okay, I'll let you take that now, but I'm gonna be eating your words in a minute when the stacked prison comes down and gets it off the battlefield.
Catastrophic for Jan, because he doesn't have any blue mana anymore. He spent all that blue mana to through the treasures to play the Murkti Regent, and yeah, now that one is gone. I think the rest of Oscar's hand might just be white cards. So
it's another one, and it's the.
But here you see him put Gigantha back in hand, so that's actually
a way to cast Flage.
That's a way to cast Flage.
Chat pointed out. I can't take credit for that. Chat pointed out. Shout out to chat.
All right, so we see Jan once again dashing his Ragavan. It's quite.
Ooh, that's a nice one to hit.
Well, it is
can't quite cast it though.
Yeah, but you get to prevent Oscar from casting it, and he's not too happy about that. But knowing Oscar, he's gonna draw some other great card.
So here we go, and so we draw a card, and then in our main phase we get to decide if we want to use the energy.
What a great card! It allows you to cast Gigantha.
That's actually quite nice, actually.
It is very nice.
It's not too bad. Like, what's the other alternative? We can either cast our 1-drop in hand or our 5-drop in hand.
And the 5-drop is a 5/5. Have you ever seen a creature such big as a 5/5?
I played. I told you I play this boss deck. I've given this card haste the turn it comes down, and 2 counters and a flying counter before, all in one turn. Have a big 7/7 elk flying at you.
Huge dragon. All right, Gigantha comes down. We can see her Peter in at the top of the screen here, and yeah, Oscar's thinking about whether or not to attack with the Raptor to maybe prevent a potential Ragavan. Yeah, exactly. Ragavan, and then Lightning Bolt will be able to take out the Gigantha, and you maybe don't want that. But and Jan is sitting on that Lightning Bolt, deciding not to use it on the Amped Raptor, maybe to set up that exact play where you dash Ragavan and can use the Bolt to finish off Gigantha.
The problem here, though, right, is we've exiled our graveyard, so the Unholy Heats aren't going to do 6 damage anytime soon.
Yeah,
in that case, we just had to 2-for-1 ourselves to get the 5-drop off the battlefield.
When you're stuck on lands, 2-for-1ing yourself is not nearly as bad as it normally is.
Do you know what's really good when you're flooding? A certain 4-mana spell.
Oh, there it is.
You're wondering.
Good thing that Oscar blocked, otherwise the Ragavan would have stolen another ring there. And I think that is a 1-drop of some sort.
It's the Guide of Souls.
It is the Guide of Souls. All right, so Oscar deciding not to use his last energy to make that Raptor fly and just gets in here. But Jan is at a precarious 8 life, facing down at least 5 power here with the Guide of Souls being able to pump something. So that's that's not nothing. And he's running out of removal spells here. You can play this Dragon Rage Channeler and maybe finally play a Ragavan that isn't super eager to get into combat
that's
here.
That's going to be an Unholy Heat, just taking
he does have the heat,
out the Guide of Souls, which makes sense. You don't want that smart. Sticking around. Oscar left in hand's got Lightning Bolt plus another static prison. I was going to say static field then for some reason.
So John puts the land into the graveyard here, and I think his hand is a subtlety with no other blue card, and so that means even if he draws an island, he can't really cast much, and he's kind of looking more for just drawing more blue cards. But is this Dragon Rage Channeler live?
No, it's one type off at the minute. Oslos Pride was the draw here for Christian. He's going to go 2 more cards deeper, though. Why not? Might as well fill it up.
Yeah. The situation is maybe something Jan can come back from if he didn't have the if the 1 ring wasn't in play, but that's kind of...
The ring's pretty good in Magic the Gathering right now, and I think we're, the price of it is also represented at the minute as it's on a uptick, shall we say. At the minute, we're going to get in there for 2 points of damage, no block, because it is just a 1/1. 2 lands with what was drawn off the 1 ring. So our hand's not really made it any better, but would rather have them in hand. That definitely comes to play. Oh, it came into play tapped for the lightning bolt. That's why we did it. Follow up is going to be Izzet Pride. No life gained. No tokens generated. Pass the turn back. It's looking hard. It's looking uphill. Can we do it? We're going to find out momentarily. These cards and these Phoenixes aren't looking great right now.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Yeah, like what John yeah, it does. Like you can collect
Scoop
evidence
cards?
is what it's called.
That's it. Collect evidence.
Yeah, you can always like just collect evidence from hand with it. Like you don't just have to like do that from the graveyard as a 1 mana +2/+2. But
the thing is, it seems to me it's kind of doing what the Psychic Frog does with exiling cards from the graveyard to make your Murktides bigger. Just not as good. But I'm sure in some situations it's great, like make a huge Murktide, exile more, make it even bigger, give it haste, give it flying, and get that one big Kraken.
You give flying to Ragavan, like that's huge. That's exactly the same strategy that Boros employs. So now we see the sideboards here.
What do you like here?
Sweet overlay.
Let's start over on the Izzet side because they're a game down. What do you like bringing in?
Yeah, so for the Murktide side, so I definitely like want the spell snares. There's a ton of like impactful 2-drops that you want to hit, and the Pyroclasms are like something that the Boros energy deck is super weak to. Like I said it wasn't an aggro deck, but it still has like most of its deck are like creatures which have kind of small butt. So
not a fan of the tiny butts in modern, like big butts.
No, I think I like the small tight ones on Izzet Pride. That's
makes the little kitties. I like it.
That's the size we want. And then we have the cast into the fire, which is an answer to the ring, but also can like easily take out an Izzet Pride and a Ragavan in one fell swoop.
Nice. It's got a bit utility to it. It's good in the early games to slow them down. Good in the late game to really hit it. I don't think we've got. There's no like Snapcaster mages or anything. No, there's no snappies in this deck. Snapcaster's having a little uptick in modern recently, or at least pre-ban.
Yeah, mostly like in combination with Flame of Anor, but in Wizard decks. But otherwise, it's usually sitting on the sidelines of these decks.
Talk to me about Oscar's deck. What do you like bringing in this matchup?
Yeah, so you definitely want ways to like attack the graveyard, and Oscar doesn't actually have them anyways. He just he has lots of 2 Hearses. Yeah, so he has 2 Hearses and a Lantern. To do that, I think he might also want the Chain to the Rocks as another answer for Murktide. We saw how like absolutely impactful that Static Prison was.
Yep.
And at dealing with that Murktide, and so like having more copies of that don't even require you to pay energy is going to be nice. One big question is like you saw how just like absolutely devastating Blood Moon was for him this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if he bought them out.
So I this is how I tend to do it. If I'm on the draw and my opponent knows I'm on Blood Moons, I'll board them out. But you'll see them in game 2. They'll be fetching basics all the time, like making their mana worse, making them think about it. In game 3, I'll bring them back in because I've got access to being able to get it turned down before my opponent. I don't know if that's correct. Just how I'm playing it, like it's worked well for me. And
yeah, no, absolutely. I think Blood Moon is the sort of card that is like so much better on the play and so much better if it's unknown. At this point, it's like kind of like expected that there are Blood Moons in the Boros deck, but I don't think John like the way his draw panned out really had access to fetch islands. So couldn't play around it, and so like that's obviously the strength of the card. Is like sometimes it just lines up like so well against your opponent's hand, but the risk is, especially like on the draw, when there's like so much pressure on you to have cheap answers so that you don't die. The Blood Moons it can be so devastating to have a dead draw.
I also like Hearsts in itself. I like this as a graveyard tool because 9 out of 10 times at the minute in modern it's only one threat in a graveyard you want to get rid of, right? It's the Atraxa, it's the Flage, something like that. You don't really want to wear the graveyard because Dredge isn't as big a deck these days. You don't want to need to get everything out in one go. But the longer this is on the battlefield, the bigger the threat it's going to get. And eventually you just play your 2-drop, you can crew it, you can get in for a big one-shot with a huge 10-10 Hearse, so to speak. So it's got utility as well as being a exile threat for graveyards. It's also a threat to life later the game goes. As players are drawing the opening 7, seeing if they like it, we're going to see Jansson on the right of our screen on the play now. What's the perfect keeps here? What do you want to see in your opening hand?
I think he really wants to like have a Ragavan plus a way to clear off those first strike blockers like Raptor and Izzet Pride here.
Okay.
And I wonder if he's. I think he has a Ragavan here, and he's thinking about whether to deploy that turn 1 or just play a Surveil land, which is going to be a very interesting scenario here. He has 3 lands. So he does go for the Ragavan, but don't think he has removal to back it up. So he's saying that, okay, if you do have an Ocelot Pride here, my Ragavan is going to be stumped in its tracks. But there are certain scenarios. If you have like a Giver of a Guide of Souls, or a or just like not have a 1-drop, which sometimes happens with the energy deck, then you can really run away with the game. So most of the time, this Ragavan is not going to do much. It's going to end up eating a Lightning Bolt here. That's totally acceptable. And I think his hand is somewhat reactive. He just picked up the removal spell.
So I've got a question for you and for you, chat. What Lightning Bolt art do you use? Now, there's been many copies of Lightning Bolt printed over the years. Lots of different art, secret layers, fancy copies. What is your favorite art?
I tend to use I think it's like M2011 bolts. Just like fairly standard stuff. I mean, like they kind of like fit with my Time Spiral basics. It's like, nothing too fancy, but it's like still.
That's what it says on the tin. It's enough for you. You're happy.
Exactly, yeah.
I like it. You know what I mean? Well, I'm the complete opposite. I'm a complete show off. So I go like, I've got the Street Fighter Hadouken ones. just so I like it when I play a card and my opponent goes, what is that? And I was just like, they're like, oh, okay, cool, pass.
So you see here Oscar having to deploy a tap land here. He actually has 2 Elegant Parlors in hand, so there's no one way around it. There was a big advantage of playing out that Ragavan on turn 1, is that Oscar did not have the space to play out the Parlor if he wished to, but still gets to spend his mana on the Guide of Souls.
D&D bolts, that's a good one as well. I love the art on those. Play reward ones. Now that's a throwback.
Something that I want to highlight here. I actually also see it wasn't a removal spell that was picked up. It was a Pyroclasm for John last turn. So that's pretty key. And something like really cool here is that, did you see how quickly like John untapped after the Guide of Souls hit the table? John had Counterspell up and could have counterspelled the Guide of Souls, but he didn't even spend a second thinking about doing it. He just let it resolve, took his turn.
So what's the reason? Why are they doing it in that sequence? Like, why are we moving so quick? Are we happy to fire off this Pyroclasm for a 1-for-1? Do we want to try and get the meat and bones out of it and try and get a 2-for-1?
I think he's trying to save the counterspell for something really impactful, like specifically the One Ring. Or maybe he does have a second island, so doesn't need to worry about Blood Moon. And then he's trying to see if he can like sweep up the Guide of Souls with that Pyroclasm later. So he's already decided beforehand, any 1-drop that Oscar plays, I'm not going to counter that. And because he decided beforehand, he can avoid giving Oscar a tell.
Okay.
Of course, it might have the opposite effect sometimes, where because you let something resolve so quickly, where like if you don't have a counterspell, you might want to bluff that you have one. It's a tell that he does have the counters, because like
exactly. Oh yeah, sure, that was ours. So Guide of Souls, speaking to Benson Manson at the Pro Tour, thinks very highly of this card. Thinks it is one of the best 1-drops that we currently have in Modern. What is your opinion of this as a 1-drop, not card in Modern, just of the 1-drops in Modern? Where would you rank this on the scale?
It's one of the best 1-drops we have in Modern.
Would you have it 1, 2, or 3? Is there a better one you can name?
Let's see. So I think in the current meta game, Ragavan is worse, but it's probably a better card overall. And then I think Delighted Halfling, maybe Delighted Halfling is probably the best 1-drop, I think.
Okay.
But it's also like a bit of a meta game thing where you require like green decks to be good enough to,
All right, sweet. I'm always interested to see how different people come from different angles. Here comes Johnny, though. Another MH3 card, Powerhouse,
and that's
coming down.
another thing that John does not need to counter, because he just has this Pyroclasm. And at this point, whatever like Oscar might think about the ways John is letting things resolve here, he can now see that, John is not... John must have a counterspell here. The way this is playing out, on turn 4, you play the counterspell, still keeping up 2 mana. And we actually missed something really important here.
Shoot, what was it? What did we miss?
The Elegant Parlor milled over a Flage. That is value.
It always feels good when that happens. Especially even in like the Goya's deck, where they're like turn 1 surveil and they hit the tracks, and then turn 2 bring it out. I'm like, oh, come on. It's just not my day today. It happens. I think we're starting off the turn though with a Amp Raptor. See that pull to the front of the hand?
I don't think he has a 4th land.
I
So
don't.
he really has to like pace himself differently. And John knows that his Flage is coming. So if he just wastes his counterspell, he's in trouble. So he just lets this Amp Raptor resolve. Hopes that he can deal with it somehow. Here's the
Souls.
possibly best 1-drop in Modern.
Possibly.
And I think there's an Ocelot Pride here. So the board got swept, but Oscar is like, I'll just build it right back here.
And that's one of the huge powers
he
of
plays
this deck,
Soulguard
right?
Lantern. So Oscar is playing around a second Pyroclasm here, I think. If he does have the Pride in hand. I think I saw it.
Why would we see the Soul Guy come in? To me, it was like, okay, I'm against Murktide in this match. I don't think they're using the graveyard too much. Is it so we don't have early Murktides coming out?
Yes, exactly. Like, John would be able to just, like, untap and slam a Murktide here, like, play Consider into a Murktide, and the fact that like, you just, like, rob John of that avenue is pretty powerful.
And we do see one in hand.
You also make... Dragon Rage channelers were. So actually, this Mistress Bubble being sacrificed does enable the Murkti to come down. But again, John knows he can't tap out yet. So Oscar can still just like... And Oscar also knows that John can't tap out. So he can still sit pretty on it. But there's some point, like, if John, for instance, plays and sacrifices a fetch land, then Oscar could consider just sacrificing the Soul Guard Lands to get rid of the graveyard entirely, which would prevent the Murkti from seeing play. But instead, John just decides to say, okay, yeah, you don't have a fourth land. You have shown me that. I don't need to be scared of the ring. I don't need to be scared of Flage. I just have to hope you don't get there because my current hand, it does not deal with what's on board and I need extra cards.
Well, Oscar's got a Licensed Hearst, a Galvanic Discharge, and an Oscar's Pride in hand, plus whatever we draw off the top now, which is, I think it was a Ragavan.
I think it was a second discharge.
Oh, second discharge? It looked like a red one drop of some description.
Well, yeah, and yes, it's two discharges. Right. Yeah. So yeah, that gambit played out for John, and I think like doing what John does here is like actually pretty smart. Like he's been leaving up the counterspell all game, and you might think that then you're committed to have to do that, but at some point like you realize there's actually a chance that like what you thought was going to happen isn't going to happen if you get a little bit lucky, and then you just have to take that risk. Yes, John probably loses the game on the spot if Oscar drew his fourth land here, but he like if he just keeps holding up that counterspell and doesn't get space to resolve his draw 3, well, he's probably losing anyways to what's on board and to like all the spells that Oscar must have in hand. So
Unlicensed Hearst being cast here. So again, this is going to straight away come in tap, basically eat two of the cards from the graveyard. One of them being the sorcery, one of them being the artifact. Meaning that Delirium turned off a little bit more. And you know, do you like holding up a Galvanic Blast here, or do you like playing the Oscillate's Pride? Bear in mind we can get him to at least 5 points of damage this turn if you want to.
I think as long as you use your Guide of Souls here to put something to more than 2 toughness, I think it's totally fine to play at the Ocelot Pride. Because then you like really amp up the pressure here, but you still might not need to. It still might be fine to hold up a discharge. So I think that's really what Oscar's thinking. Like John drew 3 extra cards. He has been playing very reactively. He might have like he could have easily had a second Pyroclasm in hand, and still decided to like draw 3. I guess that's not super likely actually. He probably didn't have the Pyroclasm in hand last turn because if you have Counterspell and Pyroclasm, you would have just played the Pyroclasm and left up a Counterspell again.
So we decided not to.
But of course, John just like drew 3 extra cards and like does have cantrips in his deck, right? So it's not, even though you can conclude that it's not very likely that John had Pyroclasm in hand last turn, doesn't mean he can't have it this turn. And so Oscar just is very content to play this slow, and it says the board that I have right now is enough, and I'm just not gonna let you like Pyroclasm into Lightning Bolt, clear my board, and then you have Counterspell with my Flage, and I have nothing.
Yeah, that's it. At the back of the mind, the Flage is still in that graveyard, still just sat there waiting for us to get that 4th land drop. We knew it wasn't on top though, because that bauble. Of course, we got to look at the top card. But here comes the follow-up.
Is that not a Dash Dragavan? This monkey knows no restraint.
Well, might end up eating a Galvanic Discharge. Do we want to fire off a counter spell on it? We'll see how much importance we rely on this Ragavan.
He still only has that one counter spell that is reserved for the essentially reserved for the Flage, but no.
Ooh, we're firing it off.
Decides to just fire it off.
Maybe the top card, but we know that top card,
no,
right?
I think this also might.
Ooh. That's not bad. That can block the Raptor.
I think this might enable a Murkti to be played, if you wish to, but instead he could just play the Ocelot Pride and a Dragon Rage Channeler. So I think with the Herson play, taking your spot to play the Murkti when you can is pretty impactful. And yeah, once again, John taps out here, not being able to deal with that Flage, but now it's a lot more risky, like, because you don't have that counterspell backup, and now you're saying, like, you have quite a few turns where you can draw that land, but also Oscar is under so much pressure that it's probably still fine for him to play this way.
No, I think that was Stacked Prison off the top.
Oh yeah, well that's
right on time. Some would say right on time. So we can not only this time we can hold up the Galvanic Discharge, we can play the Stacked Prison, and we can play the Ocelot's Pride if we want to completely unload our hand. There's no cards in the graveyard to target with the Unlicensed Hearst, so we would have to turn it on our own graveyard, which we don't really want to be doing while there's a Flage in there. We definitely just want to find our 4th land drop ASAP. But
it seems like Oscar is like 1 point short of lethal here.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, I will agree that. Can the hearse? No, the hearse isn't big enough.
Yeah,
yet, is it?
exactly. Well, you can't crew the hearse is the issue because the Oslo Pride is only one power. So yeah, quite close, but not quite there. And yeah, he's just got to sacrifice the lantern, see if he can like get that last bit over the finish line here. Though I'm not sure what he could exactly draw to make a difference here. So I think he's just digging for the extra land.
Did we find another? What is that card? Is it another galvanic?
It might be another discharge. Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, well, there goes the blocker and the big 4/4 on the other side. It might be a flage, or one ring that we drew.
Oh,
Either way, not going to get deployed.
It could be anything.
Damage coming in. This is going to be 5 more, dropping Jansson down to 3. That is in lightning bolt range.
It's in the flage range, is what I see.
Flage range.
Yeah, so John is in like so much trouble here. With a handful of spell snares, I've been praising how good this card is in the matchup. But like, if you draw them off your 5-mana draw 3, it is no longer very good. And we see John here getting a bit punished by some of the inherent inconsistency in Murkti. That's like usually when we talk about these like blue decks with a bunch of like card draw and cantrips and ways to fix their draw. Like we don't think of those as inconsistent decks, but. It actually, because you are playing reactive cards, and like reactive cards are inherently inconsistent because they need to line up with the right threats. It's sometimes you can have hands like this where you have 2 cards in hand and they're both spell snares and they do literally nothing.
Ragavan is going to eat the discharge, go to the graveyard. Follow up is going to be Dragon Rage Channeler. End step, eat the Ragavan. So now that's Hearst just off the top of the screen is a free powered creature if we do crew it. Ajani is what we found for the turn, and that is a Flage in hand.
All right, yeah. So one of you guesses was right, but the Flage in hand, yeah. So like Oscar must think that there's a counterspell in John's hand. Like the way that like the game has been played, like he was very carefully leaving up. Then he was like quote unquote wasting it to keep that Ragavan alive. It's like all just like pointing in the direction, but he also doesn't need to. Like he can just attack with a 3/4 flyer and a 4/4, and yeah, 3/4 flyer is just good enough. So
there's the handshake. Well, if we make 2 3/3s, Jansson at 3, that is going to be enough, and Chris is going to advance to a 5-0 record here. So on that one, that's Simon. I'm Will. This is round number 5. Stay tuned for round number 6. We'll see you shortly.